The calendar has turned to April, the first Thursday in April, and we are just a few weeks away from the 2022 NFL Draft. Alongside Andrew Gribble, I'm Jason Gibbs. This is the best podcast available for Thursday, April 7th. Glad you're with us. Jeff McDaniel spinning the dials behind the scenes, making us look good, including these fantastic arms. I believe I've hit on that last week, and we'll continue to do that because they're really nice. Gribbs, a pleasure, my friend, and we will get into draft talk, because ultimately we've got to familiarize ourselves with the day 2 and day 3 stuff, and maybe even a little day 1 at the end, depending on what this team may or may not do. But first things first, the Cleveland Browns active this week at the Cross Country Mortgage campus, taking care of a little special teams help.
Yeah, I mean, this was something that clearly needed to be addressed, and I think that even after the moves that have happened, the Browns probably aren't done yet. I think that clearly when you make a move at punter in season, you're not happy with the direction things are going. Obviously, bring in a savvy vet and Dustin Colquitt to get you through the rest of the year, but the kicking game probably not where you wanted it to be. Not a lot of juice out of the punt return game, and I think you just kind of did the league average on kick returns. But obviously, the one thing they have done well over the last few years is cover kicks. One of the best in the league at doing that type of stuff. So clearly, a lot of moves had to be made, and this is an area of the team that always has a lot of turnover, especially in your core guys. Those are usually fringe roster guys, and you have a lot of churn there. But moves needed to be made on the key specialist areas, and I think that clearly we have some names, but I don't know if we have any final answers at either of those spots yet.
Yeah, definitely. So on Monday, the Cleveland Browns here at the Cross Country Mortgage campus signed punter Corey Bojorquez, his 5th NFL season. Posted 218 punts for 9,890 yards, 45.4 yard per punt average since signing with New England in 2018. He handled the punt duties in Green Bay last season. Guy's got quite a leg, and I would think he will probably be the favorite going into training camp, but that, like you said, doesn't mean that he's guaranteed a spot here on this roster.
Yeah, an accomplished punter, a guy who's done a lot, and I think he was associated with, and maybe not the reason of the Packers that they struggled at the end of last season, their whole special teams operation. I think they were going to have to clean that up and get things fixed. So clearly maybe a reason why he was available here as a free agent, but big leg and also experience. He's only really punted in cold weather places. I mean, granted, he went to New Mexico, so played college at a warm weather place, but since he's been in the NFL, it's been Buffalo, Green Bay, now Cleveland. I think that's a key thing. The ball's a little heavier once the weather gets colder. You're dealing with the elements, so he's used to that. And I think that he will definitely, when you look at it, he is clearly the front runner of those two to maybe claim that job going into the season. Doesn't behoove I don't think it prevents you from going after the position, whether it be in the draft or most likely undrafted free agency, but maybe we scale back the talk about the punt god on day 2. Now that you got someone that's done it for the last few years, we'll see where the punt god ends up in the draft. But I think that this is an accomplished guy that the Browns have brought in, give you some experience, and a guy that can consistently drive it down the field.
On Tuesday, then, the Browns bringing back a familiar face and a familiar name in kicker Chase McLaughlin. 16 games last year for the Browns. He converted 15 of 21 field goals as well as 36 of 37 PATs. Was perfect from 50 yards or greater in 2021, putting all 4 of his attempts through the uprights. He's made 75.5% of his field goal attempts and 97.1% of his extra points in the National Football League. A guy that knows First Energy Stadium well, knows this football team well, a guy that Mike Prefer knows very well. But again, not a for sure that he will be the kicker come the starting week 1.
No, I mean, it's a position where unless you have that established guy, you're going to have a competition every year. I think Chase McLaughlin's a good guy to have in the competition, especially, I mean, he started off so well last year. I thought the first half of the season he was everything you wanted out of the position. It gave you that big leg and the clutch kicks that he was able to make. But it was the same thing like with Cody Parkey in 2020. Once the weather started turning a little bit, the kicks got a little bit more inconsistent. And I think that some of those kicks that he missed weren't in bad weather, but it was just the time of the year, and you wondered if things were trailing off a bit. And he's a guy that's been a part of 8 different teams in the league. He's bounced around. So someone that clearly he hit a good stride in the fall, and now you want to see if he can kind of replicate that and give yourself a good competition at that position. But again, a position that clearly can still get addressed in the coming weeks and months. I don't know if we would be surprised. The Browns have drafted 2 kickers in the last 8 or so years, which puts them at the top of the league in that category. Most teams do not draft kickers, but we'll see. There's a bunch of good ones, and as we saw with the Bengals last year, you can get an immediate impact guy as a rookie. They can come in and get the job done. It'd be great and to see if you can add some competition that way.
Well, the bigger question now becomes, where does kicker and punter rank in terms of the Browns' immediate needs in the draft? Can they push it to a day 3? Can it become an undrafted free agent pickup?
Yeah, I mean, kicker is probably going to be day 3 no matter what. I don't know if there's anyone that's sniffing the day 2 territory in this year's crop. I mean, Cade York from LSU is probably the top-ranked guy, and he's has a history of clutch kicks. LSU has a history of producing these great kickers in the league, but so it's still probably looking as a day 3 or undrafted route. But I still think you probably need to inject some competition, because I think there was clearly – you weren't satisfied by what Chase McLaughlin did at the end of last season. You want to see better from that position. You want to get to the level. The kickers in the AFC North, we talk about the quarterbacks. The kickers in the AFC North right now might be the best kicker division in football, with McPherson, obviously Justin Tucker, a future Hall of Famer in Baltimore, and then Boswell in Pittsburgh's been really, really good for most of the last 10 or so years, it seems like. So the weather gets rough. You don't want to have concerns at that position. You want to be confident in that position, because the teams you're facing, it's almost like a deflating feeling when you get late game situations against Baltimore and now Cincinnati, when you know they're going to make it from probably 55 or in more times than not.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind is the last couple of years, the practice squad numbers have been allowed to be expanded, and they will continue to be expanded, and especially with COVID and who knows what COVID will look like here for this coming season. But in the past, the Browns had to carry an extra kicker or punter on that 16-man taxi squad. So it'll be interesting to see if they end up doing that, if they don't end up doing that. But without a doubt, there will be competition at punter and at kicker. No one's getting a free pass this fall.
And the crazy thing about kicker is, I would say, and we talk about quarterbacks all the time in the league and how teams are always looking to upgrade at the position. It's safe to say there's more teams in the NFL satisfied with their quarterback right now probably than their kicker at any given time, and that's why you see so much churn at the position. You see teams move on because it's such a high-risk, high-reward position that if you have a couple games where you struggle at that position, you have to make a move. And I think it's clear you need some depth at the position. I think now, like you said, with the practice squads, you almost have to carry 2 on your on-campus kind of roster, and that's something you didn't have to do in the past. And look at how much it affected a close game in Green Bay this past year when you were without Chase McLaughlin. You struggled at that position. You kind of lost faith once you missed that first one with your backup. Then it affects your game strategy probably the rest of the way, because you're worried about confidence levels and kicking in a tough environment. So like you mentioned, the Browns need not just 1 but 2 guys they can count on. And I think that's going to be something that is at the front burner from now on forward. Yeah.
So I believe, if I have this correct, and I could be totally wrong on it, but the unofficial Browns special teams depth chart of today, Thursday, April 7th, we know Charlie Hewitt will still be here, the long snapper. McLaughlin, Chris Blewett. Is Blewett still here? Okay,
yes,
we have 2 kickers. We have 2 punters in Bojorquez and Joseph Charlton. From a kick return and punt return standpoint now, and this leads us into our interview of the week with Jakeem Grant, but Grant – moves into your kick return, punt return. At the kick return spots, you also have Dearness Johnson. You have Anthony Schwartz and Demetric Felton. At punt return, DPJ and Felton. Now, Felton showed a little bit, kind of tailed off as the season went on. Dearness Johnson came in and gave them a little spark on the kick return, but Jakeem Grant is a player that changes the dynamic when it comes to returning, whether it's punts or kicks.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much, you would think he locks up the spots because he's a Pro Bowler at those positions. And like I mentioned in the last pod, it's what you thought you might have been able to do when you signed JoJo Natson a couple years ago, but the injuries just affected his ability to lock down that spot and kind of caused the turnover. I thought, like you mentioned, I thought Felton was good in spurts last year. It's just ultimately, when it comes to ball security, that's what's going to get you off the field in a hurry. I think DPJ was solid, just didn't have any game-breaking kind of returns. Felton had that game-breaking ability, but you worried about the ball security. That's a quick way to get off the field.
Yeah, and we never saw Schwartz really because of Schwartz battling the injuries, and then once he was at wide receiver, you wanted to keep him there, but to keep him healthy.
And oddly, not a lot of experience. He talked about how he was frustrated about how he didn't really get an opportunity at Auburn. They had some other guys that could do it. When you're an SEC school, you recruit guys that can specifically do it. So they kept Schwartz in his lane and didn't give him a ton of experience. But that's something they want to keep working with him at because he has that game-changing speed. And especially on when you think punt return's a different skill, but kickoff, that's maybe somewhere where he can make an impact. But we talk about it now. Kickoff return is almost more of the decisions you see is the guy should have taken a knee instead of running it out because it's such a hard thing to do now is get kickoffs beyond the 25-yard line. So it's almost like it's the skill set, the mindset to know when to take the knee instead of making the returns out there.
Well, our new returner, I don't know how much he believes in taking it, and you'll hear it right here in this interview. Jakeem Grant, Pro Bowler in 2021. Second team All-Pro twice in 2020 and 2021. Had a chance to sit down with our Nathan Zegura shortly after signing his new contract with the Browns. Have a watch and have a listen.
Very happy now to be joined by the newest member of the Browns, Pro Bowl returner, wide receiver Jakeem Grant. Let's just start there. Pro Bowl returner. When you found out last year that you were going to the Pro Bowl, I'm sure that's one of the things when you think about, I'm going to play the game. Man, I'd love to be in a Pro Bowl someday. What was that like?
Words can't explain it. It was very exciting, especially with not making it the year before, and I was all pro the year before. And I was like, what else do I need to do to make it to the Pro Bowl? And so when Coach Nagy told me, I was like, oh my God, this is like a dream come true. And so when I got there, I was like, and then they told me, hey, you're not going to be catching punts in the Pro Bowl. I was like, okay, so now what do I do now? But cause it was a dream come true. It was amazing, especially with just being there in that atmosphere and knowing that you have fans outside of just the Chicago Bears fans and everybody that look up to you. It was a great feeling.
By the way, all pros, nothing to see
Yeah.
that. That's a pretty good thing as well. So you decided, hey, I'm going to bring my skills to the Cleveland Browns. The Browns wanted you. How did this kind of process come together?
Cleveland were very aggressive, and I've been looking at them for the longest, and they needed a returner, and I was just like, especially with receivers too, I was just like, no better fit, and also it was just an easy option.
Good.
And so I love the coaches, COs here, Chad O'Shea. Yeah. I had him in Miami. I had a great relationship with him, so that was another reason why I came, and I was just like, man, why not? You know, and I heard about just the people in the room and just what they're about, and I was just like, man, that's what I'm about too. And so, man, it checked off every check box on my list. So I was just, I'm a Brown now.
Well, we love that because it's easy when you go and you watch your highlights. You're an electric factory. And I don't know if they've hit you with the stats. So the last Browns punt return touchdown was 2015. The last Browns kick return touchdown was 2009, the great Josh Cribbs. So it has been a while. And I was looking, you have 6 return touchdowns on your resume. You've had either a kick or a punt 4 straight years, right? Mm-hmm. How do you do it, man? They've changed the rules. You're not supposed to be able to do this.
If they kick it to me, they're gonna pay. That's my whole thing. It's like, it's either you kick it out of bounds or I'm going to the crib. And so definitely going to change that this year. I'm not banking on just getting one. I'm banking on getting multiple. So, they know that. They know if they kick it to me, they seen the tape, they seen everything. I'm not a fair catch guy. So just letting them know now, I don't fair catch. And so do what you want to do with that information.
I love it. I love it. What's your favorite of all the return touchdowns? Do you have one that stands out?
I'll probably say the one against Green Bay, because everybody expects like a returner to just let it go, bounce in the end zone, or fair catch it, and I caught the ball on the 3. And I'm like, man, no returners is doing that, you know, besides Devin Hester.
But I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, that one 97 yards set the franchise record for the longest punt return touchdown with the Bears, who had Devin Hester, who was likely to be in the Hall of Fame as arguably the greatest returner of all time. So that's pretty cool too.
Absolutely. And then I didn't even know that he did not do that. Like that was the longest one in history.
You said nobody catches it on the 30.
And so I'm like, nobody is doing that. So if you could go back and even against the Raiders, the punter punted like 5 yards in the end zone, I brung it out anyways. And I told him, I'm like, I'm not trying to be just an average returner. Like I want to be the one that's remembered. I want to be, the next one to take, Devin Hester's story. Sure. And I have a far mountain to climb. And that's my goal is to, pass him up. And he's a great person to look up to. And so, that's my whole mentality.
So walk us through kind of the process. So the ball gets kicked. You have an idea of like what return has been called or set up. What's kind of your checklist? What are you going through? What are you looking at when the ball's in the air?
Okay, so first thing I check is the gunner's release and see if, my teammates, jammers, got them matched up because they're typically the first ones to get down there. Yeah. And so I already took a peep at the flight of the ball. I'm getting to the spot, and all I'm doing is I already checked them out. And so that gives me the indicator if I'm going to fair catch it or not, which most likely I'm going to fair catch it no matter what.
That's right.
No matter what. But he has to be like basically standing right next to me if I'm not going to fair catch. So after that, I'm just like, okay, if it's a left return, right return, or middle return, I'm catching the ball and just setting it up and trusting that my teammates are having it on and just letting the athletic ability take place. And so once they kick it to me, I'm like, it's basically backyard football. If anybody think about it, it's backyard football, easily.
Has there been one where you knew before you caught it, you were taking it to the house? And I'm sure you have the mindset, I'm going to take this house, but was there one where you just kind of saw the way things were setting up where you're like, all right, it's happening?
Yes, actually the one back in 2020 against the Rams. And it was just set up too perfect. It was perfect. And it was a right return to the sideline. And I seen the whole cavalry of my teammates just blocking or set up on the right side. I seen like basically you call it the Great Wall of China. Yeah. And so just seeing that right there, and I was untouched. And I was just saying, that's just, and I was like, I tipped my hat off to them because that was just nothing but blocking. All I did was run. And so I was like, anybody could have done it. So, man, it was unbelievable.
All right, so we said 6 return touchdowns. Yeah. Obviously, that's your passion, all-pro, Pro Bowler. You also can do quite a bit in the offense. You have a rushing touchdown. You've got a bunch of receiving touchdowns, had 2 of them last year. What do you like better? Do you like scoring as a runner, a returner, or as a receiver, or do you not care? Just get me in.
Honestly, I do not care. Yeah. I would say like the punt returns are more electrifying because it gives, the crowd goes crazy, especially because it's like less likely to happen in a game. Anybody can, go and score, a catch and touchdown and things of that nature. But everybody is like, okay, a punt return or a kickoff return to the house it's electrifying. It also sucks like the momentum out of any team. Oh, yeah. Because that's an instant change of, possession. And they're like, man, like special teams could easily win you a game. And so that's what I'm all about.
Yeah.
And so
Three phases.
Exactly. So me with being a punt returner and also like a receiver, I'm trying to take over the whole game on every aspect. So they're like, man, we can't stop them on offense and we sure can't kick them the ball. So, only way we don't have no choice but to, just contain them our best ability. And so that's my mentality, just being a punt returner and a receiver is just taking over a whole game.
I notice you're holding the ball in your left hand. You got a chance to talk with our special teams coordinator,
Absolutely.
Mike Prefer, and that's what he said, get that ball in your left hand, and here you are.
And he's been telling me, hey, walk around all day today with the ball in your left hand, because that on my notes when I told you when I was excited to have you here, and I was like, Coach, I'm glad to be here. It's like, but one thing that I want to talk about is why do you carry the ball in the right hand? And I told him, I was like, it's because I feel like I'm running slow. That's the only reason why I do it, because I'm not used to carrying it in the left hand.
Sure.
And it automatically is like, without even thinking, it goes to my right hand. And so he was just like, I'm going to continue to harp on you having it in your left hand. And there's so many things or extra yards that you could have gotten if you would have had the ball in your left hand. And I was like, I haven't even thought about that, but that's why you take coaching. I'm a player, he's a coach, and he can see that. And so you see me doing it now, having the ball in the left hand.
Listen, you go from great There's always room to improve, right?
Exactly.
There's always room to improve. So I
Always.
love that. And you mentioned Chad O'Shea when you were together in
Yep.
Miami, and he's been here. I'm a huge fan of his. I think he's been great for this organization. What was that relationship like, and how nice is it to have kind of a familiar face in the building?
Oh, it's great. You know, fortunately, I only know Baker and Juice and Rashad Higgins, Hollywood. And so, fortunately, Juice and Rashad are gone.
Sure.
But with seeing Coach O'Shea, I didn't even realize he was, you know, the receivers coach. And I was like, what are the odds of us being back?
Offensive coordinator.
Yeah, offensive coordinator, yeah. And so I was like, what are the odds of us being back in the same building? And it's just great because we had a great relationship in Miami. And so it just, I mean, the future is going to be great. That's all I can say.
I love it. And you have a great kind of way about you. I can feel your energy, very infectious, a big smile all the time.
Yeah.
Is this something that you ever dreamed of when, you know, you got into the game and, you know, you said, all right, I'm going to the NFL. I'm going to be more of a return guy now. All-Pro, Pro Bowler. Signed a very nice contract. Congratulations on that for you and your family, by the way. But is this kind of like, is it kind of wild to take it all in?
Yeah, but see, the thing is, honestly, people did not know that I never did punt return or anything before I got to the NFL. Like, I never caught a punt. I couldn't catch a punt. I didn't even have trust in my own teammates to, like, you have to have a little bit of insanity to catch punts.
Yeah, you do.
Because your head is almost at a 90 degree and you're saying, I trust this person to make sure I don't get blown up.
Yeah.
And even going up and fair catching it in between traffic just for field position, like, is insane. It's just insane. And especially like with me, I would take a hit before I like catch a fair catch.
Sure.
And so all I did was, like, I was a receiver before anything, before I even did special teams. And so I was just like, you know, with being my size, I want to add more to my game than the taller receivers.
Smart.
I want them to know that, like, I can be a returner and I can take over on the special team games and on the offense. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to add that niche to it. I remember coming into the lead and catching my first punt with Darren Rizzi as my special teams coach. And it was a preseason game against the Giants. And he kicks me the ball. I absolutely let it bounce. I was like, in my head, I'm like, I'm not catching that. And then Coach Rizzi is on the sideline, red as can be. He was like, why you didn't catch the ball? I said, Coach, I was scared. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was scared. And he was like, listen, you're good. Just catch the ball and just be you. And so I caught it and took it 40 yards, and then the rest is history. And after that, I've just been trying to perfect my craft and trying to just be the best one at the game, best one at it.
When did you know, though, okay, I'm good at this?
I would say 2018 is probably, I would say, probably what was my kind of like my best year at returns, and I was like killing it, leading the lead, and I was just like, man, I probably actually got a knack for it, and I was just tearing it up. Like, that was the year I scored, like, on a kickoff return and a punt return.
Yep.
And so I was just like, man, wow, like, I never thought I would be good at punt return, ever.
Yeah.
And I was just like, when I started to get good at it, I was like, man, and that's why I previously told you the reference is backyard football. And I was like, that's all it is catch the ball and try not to get tackled.
Yeah, that's right. Make them miss.
Exactly.
Make them miss until they don't, or you get in the end zone, whatever happens first. Well, Jakeem, this is going to be a lot of fun, and certainly we're excited to have you here, and I'm sure you've gotten a sense Browns fans very passionate about their football team, and you're going to have this place rocking, man. You take one to the house, it is going to be bonkers.
Oh, yeah.
At First Energy. So
Definitely.
looking forward to that. So welcome to the Browns and congrats.
Man, I appreciate it.
Thanks to Jakeem Grant for a few minutes of his time. Thanks to Nathan Zegura for his help as well. And here's a guy who's very confident in his abilities, a former sixth-round pick, and he has made the most of his NFL career through 6 seasons there, Gribbs.
Yeah, and it was a great signing by the Browns that I would say it officially was a very under-the-radar signing because I think it hit at the peak of kind of Watson mania at that point. So people were focused on the quarterback position, and you go in there and add a guy that's one of the best at his position in the league. And like I said, the Browns have been searching for this basically ever since that one season you got out of Travis Benjamin. So you didn't even have that sustained guy. Really, you haven't had the sustained guy since Cribs. And I think that's something that is quietly eluded this team. And hopefully you can get that so it's steady, solid. Hopefully he can stay healthy all year. And you've got not just someone that can catch the ball, but a weapon at the position.
6 seasons, there's only been one where he hasn't returned either a punt or a kick for a touchdown. So pretty impressive. The other big takeaway is he played for Chad O'Shea in Miami. And he said Chad O'Shea was a big reason why I'm here and the relationship that he has. And again, it's that coaching staff. It goes back to the coaching staff altogether for a third consecutive season and their ability to recruit players as well as the players themselves.
Yeah, and no one wants to just be a returner. And I think that Jakeem is going to want to make an impact in some way on this offense. We saw a lot of plays with Schwartz where you could get sweeps involved. I think Jakeem Grant's another guy that can get involved in kind of the jet sweep game. And he's got speed and elusiveness. He's a smaller guy, but if you can get him in space, he can make some plays for you. He's not going to be someone that's on the field for you every single snap, but a weapon that you can include in this offense and, let Deshaun or Jacoby get them the ball in space and let him get moving.
Yeah, he's got a couple rushing touchdowns. He's caught 100 passes in his career for 7 touchdowns. The guy can make some plays besides being on special teams, which right now in this wide receiver room, you need that.
Yeah, there's opportunity there. I know that it's a position that can still get addressed in the draft and likely will, but you've got some opportunities to make some plays because there's it's a different looking room, and I think that they will look at this in training camp and see if you can make an impact on this offense. You're going to get on the field.
All right, so we move into draft time and also phase 1 of off-season workouts, and ours will start Tuesday, April 19th. But we're looking at the draft. The pro days are just about done. The individual pro days are just about done. Now comes those interviews. And before we wrap up, there's going to be some stories, I'm sure, coming out about guys taking visits with the Cleveland Browns. Gribbs, what are they allowed to do? What are they not allowed to do? And how do those visits seem to work when they come in?
I think you're back to the normal way of doing things, and that's usually 30 on-campus visits. So with the Browns not having a first-round pick, it might be a different-looking kind of crew than you would have had if you had the number 13 pick. But there's usually just because someone visits doesn't mean you're going to draft them. It wouldn't be possible, but there usually is, especially some history with this team, especially in the later rounds. If you bring in some guys for these later round visits, there tends to be a connection there, and it's less out. Your board probably differs the most on day 3 compared to other teams and other places. You're drafting for guys that fit your schemes, things like that. But it seems like you bring in maybe multiple guys a day to kind of fit in the schedule, and you kind of give them the round robin. You meet with their specific coaches, the GM, everything like that. Get everyone comfortable with the players. So when you are maybe on the fence on someone in the 4th, 5th round, or even earlier, you go back on how did they impress you in those situations. And it's really kind of the old school job interview that has kind of just evaded teams across all sports the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And it's also going to be interesting to see, do you continue to do the work? It sounds like from what Andrew Berry said, you continue to do the work on first-round guys in the event that you're able to move back up if there's someone that falls. But how much work is done on day 1 and how much work is done for day 2 and day 3?
Yeah, I think it's almost like you don't want to discredit the amount of work they have done on day 2 in the past, because it's like they already were probably operating at max capacity on addressing day 2 and day 3 guys. So it's like the work stays the same. It's just that, maybe you do prepare for some day 1 guys, but at the end of the day, that you don't have a first round pick and you're not exactly loaded with assets to make the kind of move up into the first round or do what it takes to move up. We just saw what the Saints had to give up to get an extra first-round pick this year. It costs a lot. It usually costs a first-round pick, and the Browns don't have one of those until 2024, 25. So you gotta be realistic in what the situation is, but you still have 3 picks on day 2, and the hope is, like you have the last couple of years, that you're getting someone with a first-round grade on day 2.
All right. We'll see what happens here over the coming days and weeks as we get closer to the 2022 NFL Draft. Make sure you like and subscribe today to the best podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch all of our episodes, youtube.com/Browns. For Jeff McDaniel behind the scenes, for Andrew Gribble, I'm Jason Gibbs. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We're back with you next week on the best podcast available, presented by our great friends at Cross Country Mortgage.